Well, welcome to week 3 of Business Analytics. We hope you're enjoying the course so far, and please, at any time if you've got questions or concerns, just reach out for help. It may be your answer could even be covered by another student. It never hurts to ask questions. So let's go through what you'll be focusing on this week. The first one is really, what is the purpose of BI system architecture? Now, you've noticed that I've made the use of the words BI here and BI system. Advanced analytics reporting can be seen to be incorporated within a BI system. You could probably call it an analytics architecture or an analytics system, but let's just stick with business intelligence. It also helps in communication to the business. So, the purpose of our architecture then is that data should be safe, reliable and secure. Now, this may be self-evident, but as we have a look later around the issues around data quality and later in the course, just getting data reliable is not as easy as it always appears. Data has to be accessible to decision makers at the right time. Now, does this mean you need to have dashboards and ad hoc queries available in a mobile interface? Will you have stakeholders who will be overseas or operating at different times of the day to your standard operating hours? Does the data need to be in some kind of form, a visual form, so the decision maker can be looking at lots of different information and interact with it? Is it just a case you need some key facts available to a decision maker? It might be a marketer who's out on the field. These are all some of the considerations that need to be done. And also keep in mind that you have external stakeholders as well. So these may be government reporting agencies, these may be suppliers, these may be partners, these may be collaborators. The data for compliance and regulation has to be top quality, and particularly if you're in an area like finances or insurance, this is very much the case. The other purpose of the architecture is that an organisation changes, the system can change. So I know over my time that funding investment in analytics will come and go according to the priorities of the organisation. Keep in mind that when developing business cases or proposals, that the people who will fund those things, which may be external funders, will be looking at other options as well. And so the way to be able to do this, and we cover this more in a couple of weeks' time, is to be seen that you're building a roadmap and an overall capability. So, can your architecture cope for budget cuts? Can it cope with the team that you're working on suddenly not being as available? Can you cope with mergers, changes in structures and location, cross-organisational initiatives and changes in the supply chain? So if you look at the areas of like data governance, global identifiers, as we will touch on later on, these things are important to ensure that you can cope and have some flexibility. Our next question is really about what are the characteristics of business system architecture. So if we have a sense of what that architecture should achieve, what it should be doing, and its role in the broader organisation in supporting decision making, we want to have a look at what's the shape of it. So this is very much a generic list that would apply to all architectures regardless of the size of the organisation, the type of organisation, how it changes. So it should be flexible and scalable. It should have the balance about reliability and performance. It should be secure and accessible, handle all types and volumes of data, although obviously when you go through your information mapping exercise, you'll be able to prioritise which types of data initially. You need data available as it changes at a point in time. So this is where we talk about real time or near real time, and historical and even future data. And so we need our architecture then to be both fast moving, to be able to respond to ad hoc questions and unusual circumstances, but also be slow and steady. If you do any search on Gartner in the area of bimodal, this is the kind of thing that they talk about. You'll find also that there's a need for your IT system and architecture in general to be like this as well. So a hint, make sure you have really good relationships as an analytics professional with your IT professionals. Our last question really is about what options exist for integrating enterprise data for analytics. Now notice that there's a few key words in that question: integrating, enterprise, and for analytics. So in the time that I've been working in this space, there's been a massive change and investment in data. And so increasingly organisations, even for operational systems, having to do things with data which they wouldn't have had to do in the past because things have become a lot more complicated. So it's always worth considering that, for instance, if you're bringing in an external source of information, say some web service or a national set of data or census data or some marketing data, are there other parts of the organisation that will make use of that? Because if you could have a single entry point where that data is coming into the organisation or going out, you can make sure you've got maximum benefit from it in terms of the cost of setting it up and maintaining it, but also other important things like data quality and metadata. So, conventional options are really data warehouses and data marts, and these have been around for many, many years in organisations. We also have this concept of logical central data repositories. So in no sense, no longer the need to bring everything into one thing like a data warehouse, but instead have like a federated approach to make sure that all the data sources join up. Big data, which is often externally sourced, needs to be part of the options. And if you're an organisation who's going to be making increasing use of IoT, and there'd be very few organisations that aren't, having analytics at the edge is quite a crucial consideration. For instance, if you're processing lots of information relating to temperature data or maybe sensor data, and that data is coming off remote locations in the middle of Australia, and you've got very limited capabilities for networking, you maybe want to consider whether you do some of the processing at the edge or at the point where the sensor is collecting information. So then what's sent down the limited bandwidth of the network is just processed information. These are the kind of things you want to consider. This is a complex area, and we could easily have the whole course spent just on this week and next week. So here's a few tips for you. Follow the information need trail of the decision makers. So this is important. Don't overinvest in things that there isn't seen to be an immediate or an upcoming need for. Keep in mind the type and size of data, like my example about temperature sensor data or a video feed over a long area, because this can have a big impact on the architecture of your system and the ability to be able to capture the data, process it, store it and share it. Don't be caught out by being undersized or using all your budget on being oversized. And keep in mind the decisions utilisation. So there's often a real thirst for near real-time data. When you work with stakeholders and you find out how they're going to be using information and when, it could be the data only needs to be updated once a day, once a week, or once a month. And so these all have an impact on budget and the time it takes to develop and maintain these systems. So there's your questions for week 3. Enjoy.